we are just waiting to go live on Instagram. But oh goodness, we already have like a little problem right now because it's not connecting on Instagram. Streaming. Okay, there it goes. Okay, good. There we are on Instagram as well. So 1 second as my system kicks into place. We are live. Okay. Hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome. Hello, hello. Yes, welcome to the Kicking the Bucket live stream. I'm your host, Andi Kinsey. That's Andi like Gandhi, but without the G. And I am the creator of Kicking the Bucket. So, Kicking the Bucket is a fiction podcast. It's a dramedy because you're going to laugh and you're going to cry, and it's immersive and it's kind of like a TV series for your ears. It's going to premiere in July. That's coming up very soon. But in the meantime, we wanted to start the conversation about aging and elder care and end of life choices and decisions beforehand. So, thus the live stream. We'll be talking to the team behind Kicking the Bucket and experts on the themes. Follow us on all the socials at Kicking the Bucket or no, just at Kicking the Bucket podcast. Those are our social things. And today is our very first episode, so we're a little nervous, but we're all new to this, and I'm very excited because both Mimi Strum and Richard Gartner, who were actors on Kicking the Bucket, agreed to come and share some of their time on the live stream. So, Mimi and Richard, will you both introduce yourselves really quickly and tell the audience a little bit about yourselves? So, we'll start with Mimi.
Okay, good morning. My name is Mimi Strum. I am what do I call myself? I was an actor in New York for 50 years, a public school teacher and an actor. And as the pandemic happened, I do have family in Texas. They were transitioning. I lost a few during the pandemic. I've found myself coming back and forth. So the subject of this piece, end of life conversations, I've sort of been involved in for quite some time now. And I got lucky to be able to work on a project that actually addresses it. So I think that's enough.
Awesome. Great. And now, Richard, I'm going to pull you over here so you're in the main frame. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yes, Richard Gartner. I was born August 27, 1933, raised in Houston. Eventually, when I graduated from college, I started teaching. Then I got married. Then I had 2 children. Then I got tired of being in the that in the. I was made a director of adult education in the state of Texas. The uh, public schools. Got tired of that, decided to become an actor, did. And for all these years, I was doing that, and I have loved every minute of it, and here I am.
So I'm so excited that we all managed to cross paths. Can you just share how you became involved with this project?
Starting with me.
Oh, technically we're supposed to go alphabetical, so I'm going to move Mimi over. So Mimi, you tell us how you got involved in the project.
When I came to Austin a couple of years ago, was just looking for theater projects, and I contacted someone, and we ended up having lunch. And her name was Sharon, and she sort of hooked me up with this project. I think that maybe she was an associate of Ondi's, and one day I received a phone call. They were looking for an older actress, and I applied.
You applied, and that's how you came. And then we saw you, and we loved you. And we're like, please, Mimi, be part of this. So, okay, Richard, how did you come to be involved with the project?
Well, actually, world famous Bob is involved in this. You evidently called her or talked to her and said, "I need a man." Well, you know what I mean. And so she said she gave you my name, and you talked to me, and we said yes. It only took about 3 sentences before we realized it was going to be good.
Yeah.
So
So let's kind of dig into that, and we'll go ahead and start with you, Richard. So this is a very serious subject, right? End of life choices and end of life decisions.
Mhm,
And in the story, Dolores and Howard are taking charge of their own deaths.
mhm,
So it's treated with humor.
mhm.
What about that made you feel like this was a project that you wanted to work on?
Well, I didn't, of course, know when we started, and then
Mm,
the first time we read through, uh, I'm a pretty joking kind of guy, and I have my glass is half full all the time. So being able to look at all of this euthanasia or whatever it is in both a fun way and all on a serious way kind of fell in right in with how I am.
mhm,
So, and I think I won't go on because it's going to come down the line, but uh, actually, I was happy doing it. So none of it bothered me in the sense of, do I have any issues with all of that?
mhm, mhm. Okay, Mimi, what about you? What did it did you hesitate at all when you were like,
Oh
"Oh, wait."
no, 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 no. I find that the subject I know least about the older I get is death. And
Mhm,
even though I lose people, it's still the experience of it, the before. If you're lucky, if I'm lucky enough to actually see a loved one before they pass or during the process, it's totally unfamiliar ground. It's like alien territory. I find myself drawn to it just out of love. How do you say goodbye to someone, or how do you um, go through that process without it destroying who you are? Or it's not spoken of enough. And so I was very happy to be a part of it. I mean, I think it's a conversation that we need to have. I know I need to dwell on it a bit.
mhm. Do you feel that in some ways, and again for Mimi, is using fiction kind of a really good avenue, or like what are the benefits of using fiction to approach the subject?
Well, I believe that no matter what goes on in life, it becomes a story. We just tell stories all the time anyway. Um, whether it's true or not, that's another subject. But um, I think that's the only way you can go. I mean, life becomes fiction a lot of times, depending on who you're talking to.
That is true. Richard, what about you?
Yeah, well, I think I go right along with that in the fact that, you know, my my life has been a fiction so long before I finally, seriously, before I finally, uh, well, gosh, this is going in. I forgave my father for all the abuse, and then once I did that, then I began coming into focus and eventually learned to love myself, which then put me in another position of being aware of life, which is before I don't think I ever really got into being in life until that happened. And so since then, I just keep growing and growing and growing and growing, and that's all I need. The fact that I'm going to keep going, that's all I need.
Mhm. Huh. I forgot to tell both of you beforehand that it's a conversation. So if you have questions for each other or if you have questions for me, feel free to jump in as well. Um, so tell us a little bit about this process. How did we, because we've been working together for quite a long time now. So, what was the process behind bringing this story to the earwaves? I don't know what we call it, to the podcast world. We'll start with Richard because you're right there.
Okay. Well, this is a little bit difficult. The process when I immersed myself in the process and was able to just let go with it, then then it kind of took me over when
Mhm,
we were doing it, and that that was something new for me because I've never done a podcast. So here we are. I'm sitting here looking at Mimi and looking at a microphone and trying to be myself and make the what this is all about really have meaning to it.
Mhm.
So uh, the gosh, it's so much of it. The process for me was here I am now again learning more and more about who I am in the process. So I never got away from that the whole time. And so that to me, that was both layers of the process were what we were doing and what I was becoming.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that the to use spoken word in this way, to sit before a microphone with the script, in a small room and create these situations, it was an amazing adventure because I many times as an actor, I would find myself very, very full. And the fact that I didn't have to worry about how I looked or where I walked or, all of these other things that you have to be aware of. I was just with the page and in the room. I found it to be a very moving experience. I found it to be um, like, I felt like, oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg of this one because
Mhm.
part of me could also envision the hearing of it. We would play back little bits of it or redo something in the moment, and there was just the immediacy of it. It was a I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I found it to be a really extremely moving experience. The entire process. It started out very light in a way, and then as we dealt more with the illnesses and the reality of death, it just took all these turns, and it was a very sweet process. I got a lot out of it. Yeah.
We started with a staged reading, right? So when we all got together for the first time, we were testing it before audiences, right? So in that process, did you were you able to connect with the characters in the same way, or what was the difference between connecting with the characters for a reading versus as we got into rehearsing? Because everyone, we rehearsed before the podcast. So what was the how was the process different? Because I think it's so intense, right? It's such an intense story that in some ways you couldn't just show up, right? And be like, okay, we're just going to show up and read it. There was more to it. So, how did things change as we got into the podcast?
I know that something that I found myself doing with my daily encounters, I wanted to hear people's experience if they had been with a loved one as they transitioned, or if they were going through it right away, if they just lost someone. From the moment that I read the script, I felt like I wanted to hear, I wanted to sit with people and let them talk to me about their experience with this. And then all of that energy was what I was able to then sit in the podcast recording and sort of uh, let it flow out through
Yeah.
that way, which is, I think, a great gift of this podcast is that it opens up a door. People will talk about this uh, and share the experience, and we shed some light on this thing, which is, people don't talk about a whole lot. But as an actor, I felt like I was able to use so much just of life, the spoken words, and then talking to other humans about this
Mhm.
experience, and then just sort of channeling it into those days that we spent behind a microphone in a tiny room.
Mhm. Richard, do you feel comfortable sharing any of your stories about how things changed or if things changed personally for you during the process?
Well, having been an actor most of my life, even when I wasn't a quote actor, uh, I, then all of a sudden having to look there, not having to, looking down and reading and reading and reading, and then looking up and seeing an audience, it I noticed that I began to react physically, which I don't think I was doing when we did the rehearsals,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm so used to being on stage, looking and seeing what people are doing outside of the self. And here, all of a sudden, I'm only looking inside, in a
Mm-hmm.
sense. So all of a sudden, having to manipulate those two uh, energies, the ones that are going on here, and also occasionally looking up and seeing what's going on out there to see what the people are doing, was very interesting to me, and made me really realize how really close our subject matter is to being uh, something that needs to be put forward, because now I'm looking at people actually saying, listening to what we're saying, and so that it's like, oh, this is really what this is all about. And so now I want to know more about what this is all about. So I think that's what, having the people there, what brought that on to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, remember that I want to explore this a little further about like the fear of what people are saying or what we're saying, like, how it might affect people and audiences. We're about at the halfway point. So I'm going to give another little spiel for if people are just tuning in right now. This is the Kicking the Bucket live stream. I'm Andy Kinsey, the host and creator behind the Kicking the Bucket podcast, which is a fiction podcast that is going to drop in July. So stay tuned. Follow our socials at Kicking the Bucket Podcast. And I'm talking with Mimi Strum and Richard Gartner right now, who are both actors in the Kicking the Bucket podcast. So, so this was something that was really terrifying to me to begin with because it's such a heavy subject. And there was the fear of presenting it in a lighthearted manner. Like the story isn't lighthearted to me. It is more of a dramedy. Um, so it adds the drama and the comedy because I come from a background in Shakespeare, so I learned you can't have tragedy without comedy. So I think it has both of those, but it's also a super terrifying subject to put out there in the world. And I appreciate both of you for wanting to be part of this and also saying that it's okay if we put this out into the world because you gave me the courage to share this story in this way. Um, did either of you have any hesitation about approaching the end of life decisions in a kind of humorous manner? Not I also don't wanna say that it's not like a, full out comedy. So it's not a big, like, um well, how would you describe like, what's a movie or something that's like the full on comedy that it's not like? All I can think of is Beavis and Butthead, but that's went into my head, so it's not like that, like, it's not that kind of comedy. It is the humor that comes with life, right?
Exactly.
So, did either of you have any hesitation in approaching the story in this manner in terms of how people might respond? Who wants to go first? I know we said
I'll
yeah.
go first. I didn't have a hesitation because I've always how do I say this? I've heard it said that, when you're born, that's when you should cry, and when you leave the body, when you drop the body, that's when you um, rejoice and
Laugh.
welcome the next phase, whatever it is, and I've always deeply felt that way.
Mhm.
But sitting in the room, doing these readings, sitting in rooms, particularly sitting in the when we went to the senior citizens um, home and
The retirement
the
community and
retirement
yeah.
community,
Mhm.
excuse me. It was something I became more sensitive,
Mhm.
and I've been sensitized by this process to the fact
Mhm.
that you know, death is a very serious subject for people. It's
Mm-hmm.
frightening for people. I'm scared of suffering because I'm a chicken to suffer, but I'm not at all scared of leaving. You know, um, it just it's just such a world of beautiful conversations that this um, puts you in place for. I mean, it just there just should be more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Richard, what about you?
Okay. Oh, I've been waiting for this. uh, I never really knew I never knew the word euthanasia growing
Mhm,
up. I mean,
mhm,
people in my realm of life never discussed that because it was usually involved with religion. And you don't think of you doing anything but being a good person and then going to heaven, that kind of stuff.
mhm,
So it was interesting to all of a sudden see when I think it was Oregon that first were the first state to legalize doctor assisted end of life.
Yeah, medically assisted
Yeah, yeah.
euthanasia, or yeah. Mhm,
But they didn't really, I think, usually call it euthanasia, but that's what they
mhm,
were saying, and it came up. So, but it made me think. Okay, so where am I in all this? Well, I'm gonna do something. I hope you don't mind. Uh, here is here is here I am in high school at my graduation, or the day of my my senior year.
mhm,
My father, when I got to this, I became the world's worst narcissist. And what I'm getting through to this is that, like my father, when he turned 70, he bought an electric razor because could not look at himself again ever until he was 89 or up, and he died at 89, he left at 89 because
mhm.
he could not look at himself as that age. So
Wow.
that's the only reason, besides the fact that I like to look at it, but that's the only really the only reason I bring that up. And what people seem to just be fixated on not leaving, and it's
Mhm,
because not that I don't. So a lot of times, like Mimi said, it's not so much that they're maybe afraid of it. It's just that they don't want to leave anything.
mhm,
Don't want to leave parents. They don't want to leave children. They don't want to leave the sky. They don't want to do all that. And so here I'm going to give you a philosophy. Because what I finally realized through all the learning and therapy and blah blah was that I realized that I don't think there is such a thing as death. So because we came into this life as energy, and when we go back to being energy. Now that's a really tough one for people who don't want to leave, to think of it that way, because they always want to think of there's something else. Well, I look at it that we are here to be the happiest and helpful and all that in this life where we are. Okay, I didn't mean to get into all philosophy. You can cut it all out. But anyway,
no. We love it.
I'm holding back. I'm holding back.
Ah, you can add in too, Mimi. You wanna jump in on that?
Um,
Because I
oh,
know you have a lot of
yeah,
thoughts about it too.
because I lost my brother during this
Mhm,
process, and this idea of I know I know from his beginning to his end. I remember him when he was that little boy, and then 65 years old there
mhm,
at these last days. And once he accepted that this was his going, everything relaxed.
mhm,
And the
mhm,
people around him that were there in his final days and my conversations with him, it really was more of it's okay, we love you, thank you, thank you. And once something happened inside of him where he accepted it deeply, everything just the energy of life just changed. So I just feel like, we come in here and we have this story. Our life becomes a story. I don't know, Andy, how you got the inspiration for like
Mhm.
where this was born in you, but look at all that it's birthing as a result. And the story doesn't end. So, I don't, that was always something that I wondered, just like where this, how this came, why you felt you wanted to even write
Uh,
something like
yeah,
this in the first place.
yeah, yeah,
Why this subject,
yeah.
and Alzheimer's and dementia and all of that, because it's such a deep, deep.
Haha. I will answer that. Richard wanted to add something too, and I will answer that.
But when I mentioned the fact about no death and et cetera, et cetera, what I really needed to say was everybody that has left my life is here and here.
Mhm.
So I don't have to regret or mourn and so on when people leave, because they don't ever leave, is the way what is in my head. And so I think it would be encouraging for someone watching our podcast to realize that there's some positive things about whether you could stay or leave. I mean, you don't have to constantly say, oh, no, 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 no. You can say, I love myself, I love everybody in myself, and I love the world around me. And that's enough.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a process, right? So, and I think that was probably why this began, was because of that process of trying to come to that self-discovery. It was originally Dolores and Howard Kick the Bucket was originally a screenplay that came about during COVID, actually. And it was during the time that we had family that was far away who older adults, parents, we couldn't be there when things were happening. We couldn't help. And then we had family here as well. And my husband and I, we're we're we don't have the good social skills because in situations that are stressful or sad or scary, we both tend to laugh or crack jokes, right? So that is kind of who we are. And his like, I guess you could just take me out into the woods. A lot of this comes from our thoughts because it makes you think about getting older and what you want to happen. And then our parents are getting older and going through this time that Dolores and Howard would be going through. And Alzheimer's is huge in my on my maternal side. So I grew up with the sense that it's inevitable. I don't know. We have a lot of medical advances, so perhaps it is not inevitable. But I always grew up with the sense that it was going to be there. And my mom had actually told me this story where she was at the grocery store, a store with my grandmother, and the checkout clerk said, "Oh," to my grandmother, "is this your daughter?" talking about my mom. And my grandmother looked at my mom and said, "Well, she's somebody's daughter, but not mine." And so, like, and my mom, she knows what was going on with the brain, so she was did not hold it against my grandmother in any way, shape, or form. But I just remember, like, do I want to end up like that? Like, do I want to reach the point where, especially having kids of my own, do I want to reach the point where I um, don't recognize them? So the fiction story is kind of a way to explore that for myself. But I see we're actually coming up close to the end, so we've had a really great conversation. Do either of you have any final thoughts about the project or what we've discussed today?
I would just like to say thank you because in the time that I've been associated with this project, basically I've lost a couple of family members, and I have a sister that's younger than me that has been uh, pretty much committed, and they're thinking that it's early stage Alzheimer's. But she's 2 years younger than I am.
Since
This
we're all,
whole project,
sorry,
I'm
Mimi, since we're almost at the end, I want to say thank you for for you, Mimi. Thank you for you, Andy. Thank you for the whole process. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Mimi. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's okay.
Afraid
That's
we
what I
were
wanted
about
to do because it opened a door. It's opened a door. It's opened a window and a door and shed some
yes,
light on things. And I
yes.
feel like I'm at the beginning of understanding more about this phase of
Hmm.
existence.
Hmm.
Well, I hope that it's going to start conversations for you, both with your families, for me, with my family, for the listeners, the audience, for all of them and their families, because that's how it begins, right? Is those little conversations start to change the world. So thank you both for being here and being part of this journey. It's been very exciting. We're premiering in July. So follow our socials at kicking the, oh, look, I can put the little ticker up. I'll show the ticker at the bottom. Those are our socials. So follow that on any of the social platforms, and we hope that you will be part of our wonderful audience and fans. We reminder to the two listening, I have to end the Instagram live stream first. And so I'm going to go ahead and end that. Um, hmm, that's, I don't actually know how, oh, wait, here. I don't know how it went go live, and I don't actually know how to end it over there. I wonder if I press after you go live. Um, so, oh goodness, technical difficulties. I'm
Yes.
gonna press go live and see what happens if it cancels it. End live. Oh, oh, you know what? We weren't live the whole time.
Oh my
On Instagram. We weren't live. Okay. Hi, everybody on Instagram. We missed doing it properly, but this was our first episode. So if you want to see our live stream, please go over to YouTube or to Facebook, and we will be able to do it properly next time. So
God.
I'm going to end that live video over there. And yeah, so thank you both. I'm ending our stream. Oh, would you like a chance to say goodbye to everybody as well? Start with Mimi.
This has been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll see you in some way again. So thank you.
Peace, love, and fun. That's what it's all about. And I just say quickly, I don't say the old word anymore. I'm well seasoned.
Well seasoned. Yes. To all of us, well seasoned. Huzzah. Okay.
Huzzah.